the latest. Thank you for your love and support. I appreciate you all. The United States of America is very angry at Rwanda because they believe that Rwanda did not stick to the peace deal that happened in the United States of America. We saw that some few days ago, US and Rwanda, Paul Kagame and Felix Tshisekedi went to the United States of America in the presence of the whole world and signed a piece of paper claiming that they both agreed to a ceasefire. But they said after whatever that was signed, Rwanda is still bombarding the people in Congo. They keep giving support to the M23 to continue to be doing whatever that they are doing in DRC, which the United States of America is saying that it's a clear violation of the agreement that was signed in the United States of America. And there are people who are saying that this is even an insult because going to the White House to sign whatever peace deal and then you come back and you continue to be doing this isn't acceptable. We need to understand that Africans, we must stop whatever that is happening. Other people are saying that there's propaganda concerning what is happening in DRC, misinformation. Just because other people are benefiting from what is happening in DRC, they make sure that they spread misinformation about the reality on the ground. But things are much worse than what is being reported to the world. And African Union will ask you, where are you? If you are bent on fighting for the size of a map, we want you to also rise up and fight for our lives, because our lives are very much important than what you are fighting for. We do not need map. It's when we have life that we need these things.
Colleagues, President Trump was pleased to have convened DRC President Tshisekedi and Rwandan President Kagame in Washington on December 4th for the signing of the Washington Accords and the Regional Economic Integrated Framework. It was a true and sincere demonstration and effort towards peace. However, peace processes require parties to uphold their commitments to that very process. And the United States is profoundly concerned and incredibly disappointed with the renewed outbreak of violence in the eastern DRC. Today, I want to share with you some additional information on the scope and the sophistication of Rwanda's involvement in eastern DRC. Since its reemergence in 2021, Rwanda has had strategic control of its proxy armed group, M23, as well as M23's political wing, the Congo River Alliance, or AFC, and has deployed M23 and the AFC to achieve Rwanda's geopolitical goals in eastern DRC. Kagame has been intimately involved in planning and executing the war in eastern DRC, providing military and political direction to M23 forces and AFC for years now. The Rwandan Defense Forces have provided materiel, logistics, and training support to M23, as well as fighting alongside M23 in DRC with roughly 5,000 to 7,000 troops as of early December. This is not counting the possible increases from Rwanda in this most recent advancement. In more recent months, Rwanda has deployed multiple surface-to-air missiles and other heavy and sophisticated weaponry into North and South Kivu to aid M23 in its conflict against DRC. Rwanda and M23 began their offensive just this last weekend to take Uvira, with Rwandan forces co-located with M23 along the front lines. Additionally, we have credible reports of increased use of suicide drones increased use of artillery by both M23 and Rwanda, including strikes into Burundi. So rather than a march towards peace, as we saw under President Trump's leadership in recent weeks, Rwanda is leading the region towards increased instability and war. And in light of the commitments made in the Washington Accords, we are deeply concerned that the Rwandan military's continued presence in Congolese territory in support of M23, and we will use the tools at our disposal to hold to account spoilers to peace. We call on Rwanda to uphold its commitments and to further recognize the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo's right to defend its territory and its sovereign right to invite Burundian forces onto its territory. We are engaging with all sides to urge restraint and to avoid further escalation, including refraining from hostile anti-Tutsi rhetoric. As this council negotiates the MONUSCO mandate, the United States will seek to ensure the mission has the capabilities to provide support to both the Doha and Washington agreements, keeping in mind that the parties themselves bear full responsibility for their successful implementation, and we look for the members of this council's support as we negotiate this mandate's renewal. MONUSCO's ability to provide critical enabling support to these processes, however, hinges entirely on its ability to move freely, to sustain itself, to implement its mandate without interference. And the fact that UN peacekeeping forces are under siege by forces backed by a member state that itself is a troop contributor to peacekeeping missions, frankly, is a sad hypocrisy. Unfortunately, M23's months-long blockade on MONUSCO has undermined its ability to operate effectively in and out of Goma, as many representatives have stated here today. And for its part, Rwanda continues to deploy surface-to-air missiles and additionally conduct spoofing and jamming operations, which have effectively grounded MONUSCO air operations. So how can MONUSCO succeed under these conditions? We demand the immediate end of such obstruction, which violates M23 and Rwanda's obligations under both the Doha and Washington agreements, respectively. We remain steadfast in our support of MONUSCO and its role in the realization of these historic agreements, which we believe hold great potential to end the decades of suffering in Eastern DRC. I thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, I thank you for giving me the floor, and allow me to begin by commending you for your effective leadership of the Council this month. I also extend Rwanda's appreciation to the Council members concluding their terms. Your service and contributions to the Council's work have been invaluable. I thank USG Rakurwa, Dr. Mohamed Javid, for their briefing and taking note of the Secretary General's report. I also acknowledge the statements made by those who spoke before me. As the Council considers MONUSCO's next mandate, Rwanda expects a mission that is clearly anchored in and reinforcing of the Washington Peace Agreement and the Doha Framework, both of which the Secretary General's report rightly identifies as the central avenues for a sustainable peace. The mandate must therefore prioritize strict impartiality and political neutrality, support to ceasefire implementation and political dialogue, robust human rights due diligence policy compliance, timely suspension and reporting mechanisms where required, refraining from offensive operations against parties formally engaged in political processes, and a realistic resource-conscious focus on stability, accountability, and political solutions. These priorities reflect the realities outlined in the Secretary General's report. MONUSCO's effectiveness will depend on aligning its operations with the political tracks that offer the only viable path forward. The Washington Peace Agreement and the Doha process are complementary, mutually reinforcing frameworks. When the mission supports them consistently and impartially, it can help to create the necessary space for implementation. Rwanda reiterates its full commitment to implement its part of the agreement. We equally believe that the success of the agreement will depend on the political will of both parties. Mr. President, the recent situation in South Kivu has been extensively discussed, and allow me a moment to also address it. And I will address some of the issues that may logically attract the question, why am I addressing them? But there is a background to that. In 1994, in this chamber, Ambassador Kovac of Czech Republic, Ambassador Keateng of New Zealand, Ambassador Gambari of Nigeria spoke that Rwandans were being exterminated, that an ethnic group in Rwanda was being exterminated. They had never been to Rwanda, but they discharged their responsibility, confronted denial and silence that was taking place in this chamber to call the genocide for what it was, as it was happening in Rwanda. So, I am here today, and I survive today because those courageous diplomats discharged their duty. I wanted to do it. The situation in South Kivu and the general situation obtaining after the Washington Agreement is a collection of many situations. The ceasefire that was repeatedly broken by the DRC government, that not only broke the ceasefire, but announced they would never stop attacks. Air attacks are offensives too. Even as the diplomatic tracks move forward, the situation on the ground in South Kivu continues to deteriorate in ways this council cannot morally or legally ignore. Over the past year, and in reality since 2017, the Banyamulenge, a Tutsi Kinyarwanda-speaking community of the DRC, have endured a well-documented, systematic, and escalating persecution. I just wanted to address this area alone, among many things that put it together cause the situation we are in. Allow me to highlight just a few incidents which are part of this sustained and systematic campaign of persecution of the Banyamulenge Kinyarwanda-speaking Tutsi ethnic group. Since 2017, more than 85% of Banyamulenge villages in South Kivu were destroyed. An estimated 700,000 cattle, which is their economic lifeline, were raided and killed. On August 25th of 2025, Wazalendo militias and FARDC issued a 10-day ultimatum demanding that all Banyamulenge leave Uvira or be killed. The ultimatum further prohibited them from accessing markets, water points, and other essential means of survival. On the 4th of September 2025, the decision was made to deny the Banyamulenge civilians access to public water points on the grounds that they were enemies. From the 5th to 8th of September 2025, Banyamulenge civilians were abducted and shot, while the mobs chanted for the end of the Banyamulenge. These are early warnings, indicators of atrocity crimes, discrimination, dehumanization, forced displacement, and the denial of basic services. Tens of thousands of Burundian soldiers were deployed into South Kivu on the invitation of the government of the DRC. This is in addition to the presence of FDLR, mercenaries, Wazalendo, and other militias. These troops established coordinated military blockades, which exacerbated the situation above. Their operations alongside FARDC, FDLR, and the affiliated militias imposed a siege on the Banyamulenge population. And I wanted to highlight here that there are other ethnic groups in that area. There are Babembe, Bafurero. There is another ethnic group that I don't remember. But these conditions I'm describing were imposed only on Banyamulenge Tutsi ethnic group. Banyamulenge, yes. Their operations alongside FARDC and FDLR and affiliated militias imposed a siege on the Banyamulenge population, resulting in nearly a year of the communities in the Minembwe Highlands being deprived of food, medicine, and humanitarian access. This situation was exacerbated by the coordinated military blockades. On the 16th to 18th of October 2025, the only road to the Mitamba market was closed, cutting off food supplies to civilians. On the 6th of September 2025, a group of 80 to 100, between 80 and 100 Banyamulenge civilians, mostly women, returning with food for their starving families, were ambushed by a FARDC Burundian Mai Mai coalition, and reports indicate killings, torture, and sexual violence. Equally well known, but disregarded, is the scale of air attacks carried out by DRC government forces and their allies, which continue to affect civilians already under siege. Among many others are the following. On the 29th of August 2025, and multiple dates, repeated drone strikes hit the outskirts of Banyamulenge IDP camps around Mikenya. On the 27th of September 2025, a Burundian CH-4 drone bombed Nzibira in South Kivu. On the 15th of November 2025, Kinshasa operated drones bombed Mikenya, a village hosting Banyamulenge internally displaced persons. Between March and December this year, there has been 50 air attacks in this area. No one is speaking about this. I will appreciate the situation another day if we can be told this didn't happen. We have raised this, at least I did, with some members of the council, individually. We have raised this in this chamber. Nothing was done. The government of the DRC, as an inviting authority, should be responsible for the action and the conduct on the ground of Burundian forces and their allies. Rwanda has not been silent. I just said this. Rwanda has not been silent in the face of these developments. Our Minister of Foreign Affairs has raised the blockade directly with the mediators, the United States and Qatar, the representatives of the European Union and the African Union. And I have just said that I raised it with individual members of the Council. I raised it with the penny holder, with some presidencies, with the heads of some mechanisms in the region, and nothing happened. Taking into account the factual situation and the wider context of hate ideology in DRC, and the inherent legal and moral obligation, allow me to ask the question. Has the Security Council not been aware of this situation? Or did it not? Did this situation not merit your attention? The situation in South Kivu, as we address it, we must consider what was the situation before the recent escalation. As a former investigator myself, there is what we call recreating the scene. From where we sit, we can only tell you the facts. But the Security Council can, among the wide possibilities you have, to recreate this scene. Choose to recreate it. But that is how it will look. All the principles that we have spoken about, sovereignty, territorial integrity, Rwanda is part of that multilateral belief that must be respected.
What matters is our resources. These are the things that we need you as African Union to rise up and fight. These are the places that we need you to activate your standby forces to go and fight and protect the resources. Because of our resources, we are not having peace. Other people are not allowing us to be at peace because of our resources. And you are so much aware of the things that are out there concerning what is happening in DRC, yet you are quiet about it. But you are very quick in giving sanctions to Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, who are rising to fight for total liberation and to also claim ownership over their resources. But you are so bent on making sure that you fight Africans who are fighting for true liberation. We expect that by now, what is happening in DRC should be over, because if you are an organization that you think that you are there to represent the people and to fight for the people, you need to act in the interest of the people and not to be silent when you are needed most. Why should other people sit outside of the continent to summon us and to unite us? What is the essence of African Union that every year you always sit there in your meetings to be calling for African unity? How can we unite when the same people that are oppressing us are the same ones that are always sitting there to mediate for peace in Africa? And these people don't always come to do it for free, like Trump was talking about resources, because they all have their interest in whatever that is happening in Africa. We must understand as Africans that we owe the duty in uniting ourselves. If we are thinking about the African solution to the African problem, then we should be ready to start acting in that regard and stop allowing people to come into the continent in the name of uniting us when actually they are after other things. The resources must benefit the people. Look at DRC with all the resources that they have. Look at the state of the people. Look at the poverty rate in DRC. Yet African Union, you are not seeing all these things. But the day that we have a good leader that will rise up to take power from these democratic elected who are there for decades without doing anything and the people are suffering, we will see how active African Union is. So are you an organization for the interest of the people of Africa, or you are rather against us? Because where we need you to act as an organization, that is where you fail to do. You are always chasing after things that are not of necessity to the African. Our lives matter, and the resources in our continent must be used to benefit the African. Enough of the time that you always go to your parliament and be sitting there calling for reparation, calling for other people to let Africa go. If we are truly looking for freedom, then we should be ready to fight for freedom, because there is no other person that will give us the freedom that we are looking for. DRC deserves to know peace from any other person that is acting in his interest and other people. And the people must benefit from their resources, because the resources belong to them. Enough of us seeing people sitting down claiming they want to bring peace between Rwanda and Congo without us seeing any significant benefit of whatever that they claim they have signed. At the end of the day, it's the people that are suffering in Congo, and the people in Congo deserve to know peace. Enough of the interests of other people in Africa and making Africans to suffer. We are the only ones that can set ourselves free. United we stand, divided we fall, and united we keep standing forever and ever. The greatest enemy of the African is mental slavery. So let's decolonize ourselves from mental slavery. Let's keep sharing to educate our brothers and sisters. Together we make Africa great for ourselves and the next generations that are going to come. So that's the latest around the world and in the United States of America.